From the Sky News Centre at 10, the Health Secretary is warning the UK's at a tipping point where more coronavirus lockdown measures could follow.
I don't want to see more measures, more restrictive measures, but unfortunately, if people don't follow the rules, that's how the virus spreads.
Matt Hancock is calling on everybody to keep in line with restrictions and report anyone who breaks them. He's also revealed he's had talks with the Mayor of London about stricter rules for the city. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer's warning a second national lockdown's likely as he feels the government has lost control of the testing system. People in England who refuse to self-isolate will face fines of up to £10,000. The measures will apply from a week tomorrow for those who test positive for coronavirus or are told to quarantine by NHS Test and Trace. A man's been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a multiple stabbing outside a pub in Plymouth. 4 people are in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Courts in England and Wales will be able to hear repossession claims by landlords after today. A reprieve from legal action is ending for renters who have fallen behind with their payments during the pandemic. That's concerning John Holstrom, the chief executive of the Turning Tides charity.
Housing and homelessness sector is not in a good place to take any large number of new cases. When the lockdown happened, we needed to protect the NHS. We only just managed to get most people who are rough sleeping into temporary accommodation. We are just not going to be able to cope with the pressure of lots of new evictions.
It looks like TikTok may continue operating in the US. President Trump had threatened to ban it, but is now backing a proposed deal between Oracle and Walmart to oversee the app's operations. And Boris Johnson will be among those at a service at Westminster Abbey this morning, marking the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. The air campaign was a decisive win for the RAF over the Nazis. That's the latest. I'm Nick Qureshi.
Some people have an instinct
to protect those in need
and stop those doing harm.
To be there when it matters.
And to be the change their community needs.
If you have the instinct to make a difference, join us.
Become a police officer.
And get all the training and support you need.
Make your difference.
Search Join the Police.
And be one of the 20,000 new officers.
Like a Radio. Talking Points with Keith Faz on Like a Radio 1458 AM.
Good morning and welcome to Talking Points with me, Keith Vaz, on Like a Radio 1458. Thank you for joining me today, Sunday the 20th of September 2020. And a big thanks to Sonia for yet another wonderful show. Sonia, it's a pleasure waking up to your dulcet tones every Sunday morning. On this day in 1946, the Cannes Film Festival was born at the resort of the same name on the French Riviera. And in 1967, Cunard's flagship ocean liner, one of the most famous liners in the world, the QE2, was launched and named after our Queen. Happy birthday this week to the legendary Amin Ali of Red Fort fame. Our songs of the week this week are chosen by an Indian overseas student from Mumbai in India who's currently studying at De Montfort University in Leicester. She is pursuing her Masters in International Business and Marketing. Good morning, Annie Singh.
Good morning, Mr. Ross.
Now tell us your first song. What have you chosen and who is it dedicated to?
So the first song that I have chosen is Vaste by Tony Bhanushali, and it is dedicated to my parents Kamlesh and Ranjana, who are back in India, and I really miss them.
Okay, and what about your second song?
My second song is Tera Yaar Hu Main by Ajit Singh, which is for my best friend Vaishnavi Aluwalia, and she also lives in Mumbai.
Oh, does she? And what does Vaishini do?
She's a student like me. She's also doing her masters, but in India.
Excellent. And your third song is going to be what? I hope it's something jolly to keep us awake on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, of course. So my last song is High Heels, which is from Key and Cow, which is just for me, as the song really makes me feel happy and confident.
Annie Singh, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your choice of songs. We will listen to them with great interest and enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you, Mr. Ross, and all the listeners of Leica Radio.
Now, have a think about this question. What have Benedict Cumberbatch, Beyoncé, Madonna, Ariana Grande and Bill Clinton got in common? The answer is that they're all vegans. My special guests include a leading London doctor who is an international champion of veganism, Dr. Mala Dalal, the chair of BRAC UK, the biggest charity in Bangladesh, Simone Sultana, and a woman councillor who is in charge of the redevelopment of the London Borough of Brent, Sharma Tatla. So we have an all-women lineup this week. How's that for gender equality? Please stay tuned. This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458.
This is Leica Radio.
My special guest today has been described as a high priestess of veganism. Dr. Mala Dalal is a general practitioner in northwest London, working primarily at an urgent care centre, which this year was converted into a major COVID hub. She was born into a Jain family in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and then moved to the United Kingdom. Her parents were eminent gynecologists and medical professionals, with 2 maternity homes, inspiring an early appreciation of medicine. She studied medicine in Ahmedabad and then came to the UK, where she worked for 30 years as a GP, as a medical teacher, and an examiner at Imperial College London. She became interested in lifestyle medicine after learning about the power of plant-based nutrition, and as I've said, is referred to as a high priestess of veganism, with the ambition of turning the United Kingdom and the world vegan. She's 2 daughters, Kamal, a lawyer, and Sujana, a tech consultant, both of whom are vegan. She joins me this morning from Northwood. Good morning, Dr. Dalal.
Good morning, Mr. Vaz.
Now, do you remember, I know it's a bit of a time ago, but do you remember your early life in Ahmedabad, in the Gujarat?
Yes, extremely well. Actually, as a matter of fact, I have an elephant's memory. But besides that, it was absolutely wonderful, almost idyllic, carefree childhood. Very informal, lots of playing, lots of studying, and lots of eating. The usual day would start around 6 o'clock because everybody used to wake up early in my household. Light breakfast, concentrated study for 3 to 4 hours, then home-cooked, nutritious vegan meal cooked by our housekeeper stroke my nanny, and off to school. Came back from school, then obviously evening was always a playtime with neighbors' children or with my school friends, and early to bed around 8 o'clock.
Now, your parents were both doctors, and this, of course, is a traditional profession for our community. Were you influenced at a very young age because of their profession to become a doctor yourself?
I was raised in a very loving and industrial household. As you have already mentioned, my both parents were gynecologists. My mom in particular was very accomplished gynecologist, a fierce force, disciplined and very determined. People respected her highly for her work, and that had a huge influence on me. I always wanted to emulate her. My dad was a brilliant gynecologist and a surgeon, but his real love was ideas. He was very curious about the world. He had a range of interest, from making his own ham radio to biomedical engineering, literature, history, painting, manufacturing. All these had a tremendous influence on me.
Now, you studied medicine in the V's College. How different was studying medicine for a woman in India at that time compared to the young women you're teaching at Imperial now? Because now, of course, it's quite traditional and not at all unusual to be teaching more women than men at colleges. Was that the case for you at your young age?
Partially, yes. When I entered the medical school, it was about 10% of the girls. In the 115 class, about 10 of us or 15 of us. But I came through a period where the girls were actually encouraged. And on top of that, we had enough role models, not to mention my own mother. I never felt in any way inhibited, or I never doubted myself. And I have to give credits to my school teacher and our headmister, who said that the girls are always as good, if not superior. So myself personally, no. But always, initially, it was less girls than the boys in the medical school.
And then, of course, came the break. After you qualified, you left Ahmedabad and you married your husband, Gautam Dalal. You left your birthplace and you came to a completely new country. Why did you decide to make that move?
obviously, I met my then husband and decided to join him. I was initially very excited at the prospect of living in London. Little did I realize how different it was going to be. On the 22nd of March 1988, when I arrived, it was cold, gloomy and grey. First time I realized the importance of sun. The other thing I realized is to work here, I had to get through my examination, which at that time it was called PLEB, a Professional and Linguistic Assessment Board. Pass rate was very low. My husband had a very busy job in city, and so I had to organize myself.
This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458. I'm talking to the High Priestess of Veganism, Dr. Mala Dalal. We've talked about her life in India and her arrival in the UK. Let's take a short break and we're going to be back with you.
वास्ते जान भी दूं मैं गवाह माँ भी दूं किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं बदले में मैं तेरे जो खुदा खुद भी दे जन्नते सच कहूँ छोड़ दूं
तुमसे ज्यादा मैं ना जानूं तुमसे खुद को मैं पहचानूं तुमको बस मैं अपना मानूं माहिया तुमसे ज्यादा मैं ना जानूं तुमसे खुद को मैं पहचानूं तुमको बस मैं अपना मानूं माहिया वास्ते जा भी दो मैं गवाह माँ भी दो किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं नहीं है बाकी दिल में कदम उठाऊं जहाँ भी जाऊं तुझी से जाऊं मिल मैं तेरे अलावा कोई भी ख्वाहिश नहीं है बाकी दिल में कदम उठाऊं जहाँ भी जाऊं तुझी से जाऊं मिल मैं
तेरे लिए मेरा सफर तेरे बिना मैं जाऊं किधर
तुमसे ज्यादा मैं ना जानूं तुमसे खुद को मैं पहचानूं तुमको बस मैं अपना मानूं माहिया वास्ते जा भी दो मैं गवाह माँ भी दो किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं
बदले में मैं तेरे जो खुदा खुद भी दे जन्नते सच कहूँ छोड़ दूं
तू ही है सवेरा मेरा तू ही किनारा मेरा तू ही है दरिया मेरा खुदा का जरिया मेरा तुझी से होता शुरू ये मेरा कारवां तुझी पे जाके खत्म ये मेरा सारा जहां
वास्ते जान भी दूं मैं गवाह माँ भी दूं किस्मतों का लिखा मोड़ दूं
Leica. This is Talking Points with Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458 AM.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458. I'm talking to someone who wants to turn the world vegan, the Dr. Mala Dalal. Now, Mala, you arrived in Britain, you had to retrain because, of course, the examination system was different. You passed successfully. What was it like being a GP in the late 1980s and the early 1990s?
I said it wasn't much different. Obviously, the workload was perhaps different. I would like to mention that after passing my pleb, I had to retrain. It's called vocational training. So we had to do the 6 months, a different job in few different specialities before you can qualify as a GP, which took about 4 to 5 years. So I had to organize my own vocational training, and 3 of which I did it in North London and 2 in South London, as we used to live in Wimbledon. And after retraining, I started as a GP training in Harpenden before moving to Northwood.
Mala, the government has just written to doctors saying that there should be more face-to-face interviews. The difficulty of getting an appointment to see a doctor during COVID is now legendary. Do you think that it's a valid criticism of the medical profession?
I would strongly disagree, because patients are only seen when they need to be seen. It is for their own safety. We are in unusual and unprecedented times with this highly infectious virus. COVID has accelerated the change in many parts of the society, including medicine. Telemedicine is new norm. Health system has embraced telemedicine or virtual consultation. We are reflecting the trend, which is so evident. You might have heard history gives 80% of diagnosis. So if careful and focused history, it's very effective. However, protocol around infection control inevitably means that capacity has reduced. So how it works? It's telemedicine, video consultation, e-consultation, and about 20% we bring them face-to-face when you think we need more information. It is for the safety of the patients and for the doctors and greater good of the society. And it's like everywhere.
Mala, you became a GP. You also became a teacher at Imperial College, one of the great universities of the world. How do you find teaching as a profession as opposed to being a GP?
I actually quite enjoyed it. It's one very interesting part of my job. And it just brings a little bit of variety as well. My parents, as I've mentioned, they were both the professor and the teachers at the civil hospital. And I had seen my mother waking up at 5:30, getting her tutorials ready. In VS hospitals, teaching was a part of or a way of our life. The teaching was done in the ward round. It was done in tutorial, discussion of the cases. And the same thing I found that I was doing at the Imperial College.
Why are we always told, Mala, that there is a shortage of doctors? There are all these great universities churning out medical students. You're one of the examiners and the teachers. But we're always told there aren't enough doctors. Why is that?
I think about it is as a twofold. The one is, I think, a lot of brain drain, or the very able doctors emigrating to Australia, New Zealand for a bit more sun, a bit more outdoor life, or US, a bit of a financial gain as well. And the second thing, maybe it's the more than 50% medical student intake is girls. And at some point, the childbearing pregnancy does come into equation. That means 4 or 5 years you are behind your peers, and that must be playing its part. And women had a cementing role, but that as a result you have to pay for the price whatever you do.
This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458 talking to Dr. Mala Dalal. When we come back, I'll be talking about religion and veganism. Join me after the break.
Leica.
This is Leica Radio.
Tariq Halal. There is only one.
But there is always one branch near you.
Edmonton, Harrow Wealdstone, Wembley and South Harrow and North West London. Visit tariqhalal.com.
Leica Radio presents the Leica Star, and we've teamed up with the Don Raja Apache Indian to give you the chance to showcase your singing talent.
Hi, big respects. This is me, Apache Indian. We say Namaste, Sasrikar and Salam in an Indian ragamuffin charm.
The lucky winner will have a chance to win, sing and record with Apache Indian at the AIM Academy alongside J Productions. All you need to do is send us your singing video clips in any genre or language to leicastar@leicaradio.com or WhatsApp on 07424 777 777. Become the first Leica Star on Leica Radio.
Lockdown is finishing and businesses are reopening now. During lockdown, people started to listen to radio more. Radio is the best way to let your customers know that you are open again. To win customers back is challenging, but radio can help. Call Leica Media sales team on 0207 132 1458 to make your customers aware that you are open again.
Leica Radio. Talking Points with Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458 AM.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458, talking to Dr. Mala Dalal. We've talked about her early life, her life as a GP and as a lecturer at Imperial. We now want to talk to her about something that's driven her from really her birth. That's her Jainism. Why is your religion so important to you, Mala?
I feel really privileged to be born in a Jain family. Jainism is a way of life, and the most important principle which I really absolutely admire and I follow is ahimsa or non-violence. There is also anekantvad, which is more than one of doing things, and the 5 main vows are satya, which is truth, ahimsa, non-violence, asteya, non-stealing, aparigraha, non-possessiveness, and a brahmacharya. I was brought up in a busy household where my grandma and my aunt frequently visited our place, and my grandma told me the bedtime stories about this Jainism, about the people, noble human being with a full of compassion and kindness, and that was all driven on the principle of non-violence and has lasting effect on me. Basically, Jainism is about not inflicting pain on any creatures, and it's respect for all living beings.
Do you think your Jainism inspired your belief and desire for veganism? Because it is the next step, isn't it? You've been a vegetarian all your life, but from a vegetarian you become a vegan. Do you think that religion played a part in that?
Yes, religion played a huge part. As you mentioned, I was always vegetarian and have never desired to have a meat. But my daughters became vegan. I became more and more aware of the factory farming, and that made me realize that, yes, I do want to become vegan.
So your veganism has now become a way of life. I know when I first met you, the first thing you did was you were trying to get me to convert from being a meat eater to be a vegan. Tell me about the importance of veganism to you. You've obviously never eaten meat. Why is veganism different, and how is it different from vegetarianism?
So veganism is the practice of abstaining from the use of animal products, particularly in diet and in associated philosophy that rejects exploiting animals, especially when it's completely unnecessary. There are lots of well-known vegans, but I particularly admire
तू जो रूठा तो कौन हंसेगा, तू जो छूटा तो कौन रहेगा, तू चुप है तो ये डर लगता है, अपना मुझको अब कौन कहेगा, तू ही वजह तेरे बिना बेवजह बेकार हूँ मैं, तेरा यार हूँ मैं।
आजा लड़े फिर खिलौनों के लिए तू जीते मैं हार जाऊं आजा करें फिर वही शरारतें तू भागे मैं मार खाऊं मीठी सी वो गाली तेरी सुनने को तैयार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ खुशियां च नचदा मैं फिरां हंजुआं तो बचदा मैं फिरां ओ जाते नहीं कहीं रिश्ते पुराने किसी नए के आ जाने से जाता हूँ मैं तो मुझे तू जाने दे क्यों परेशान है मेरे जाने से टूटा है तो जुड़ा है क्यों मेरी तरफ तू मुड़ा है क्यों हक नहीं तू ये कहे कि यार अब हम ना रहे एक तेरी यारी का ही सातों जन्म हकदार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ मैं तेरा यार हूँ
Is Leica Radio. Leica Radio.
Leica Radio. Travel update.
I'm Michael Page. The M4 remains closed until tomorrow morning, both ways between Junction 5 for Langley and Junction 6 for Slough and Windsor for the weekend works. On the M25 clockwise between Junction 14 for Heathrow and 15 for the M4, there's an accident blocking lane 1. In Chadwell, Heath High Road remains closed, the A118 at the Cedars Club because of a building fire. There are restrictions in the centre of town on Pall Mall East because of emergency repairs and a crane operation between Trafalgar Square and Pall Mall. And in Clapham, Kings Avenue is still closed southbound between Clapham North Station and Clapham Park Road because of emergency repairs. On the overground, there are minor delays between Stratford and Richmond because of earlier overrunning engineering work. And engineering work on the tubes means we've got no services on the Circle Line between Hammersmith and Tower Hill via King's Cross. There are no Hammersmith and City Line trains between Hammersmith and Barking, but an extended Circle Line service will run between High Street Kensington and Barking via Victoria. And there are no Metropolitan Line trains today between Baker Street and Aldgate. And that's the latest traffic and travel.
Leica Radio.
Sometimes it's difficult to find your perfect match. So at Mercedes-Benz, we've made finding the one really easy for you. With the new Mercedes-Benz online showroom, you can search and compare all approved used cars in stock today. Also, with offers across the entire range from SUVs to cabriolets, finding your perfect match couldn't be easier. And because every car is fully approved by Mercedes-Benz, peace of mind comes as standard. Search Mercedes-Benz approved used today.
Leica Radio.
This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458. I'm talking to Dr. Mala Dalal about veganism. Mala, you are very upset, and you have been very upset when you hear about the pain that's been inflicted on animals. And you've said this in your writings and speeches, that you think that people don't understand the pain that animals suffer in order to give them a meal. What did you mean by that?
Because people think animals have a good life outside with a lots of space to roam around. In reality, over 95% of farming is intensified. That's factory farming. As part of this, animals are cramped and live a miserable life just to give a momentary pleasure to your taste bud. Male chicks are ground up alive and cows get taken away from their mothers in the dairy industry so the humans can consume dairy. Imagine being born and bred to produce milk. Can you imagine the women constantly lactating? These cows are impregnated artificially. The gestation period is 283 days, same as a human's, 280 days. But then calf is taken away straight away, and the cows are expected to produce the milk for another species. The cows, due to this immense pressure, they are crippled, and at the age of 5 years, they were sent to the slaughterhouse. Usual cows roaming around will live to 18 or 19 years. It is nothing else but animal cruelty and torture.
Mala, explain to the listeners of Leica Radio the precise difference between being a vegetarian and being a vegan.
So being vegan is one step forward. It means there is no use of milk, eggs, or any animal products like leather. And if I go one step forward, it's about living conscious living, or reducing the carbon footprint by reducing the exploitation of animal. But main thing, no eggs, no milk, no cheese.
And can you eat fish?
No, of course not. I mean, even vegetarian wouldn't eat the fish because that is inflicting pain and killing a living being.
Your mum was featured on a big digital platform called How to Live to Be 100. You must be very proud of her because she's reached 98. How has she managed to live so long and be so healthy?
So my mom had an extremely good lifestyle throughout her life. She has eaten a predominantly plant-based diet, very regular lifestyle, simple and honest life. And as a result, she was featured in a Plant-Based News, a digital platform about conscious living and good health. They featured her in a video related to the Blue Zone. The Blue Zones are the regions of the world where people live much longer than average. It is through their daily healthy routine, including exercise, diet, which is responsible for their longevity. It's body, mind and soul, and nothing in excess. Ati sarvatra varjayet, or nothing in excess, middle path.
Now, your family is very important to you. I understand that you'll take it in turns to read a story to your mum every night. Why is that sense of family values so essential to your life?
As you know, the values are universal and eternal, whether it's in East or West. We all are very close-knit family. My mother and father, Dr. Tanumati and Dr. Girish Chandra Shah, came and looked after my children when they were babies and when they were young children. It has created an amazing bond. My children were told bedtime stories. They were playing with my parents. As a result, the bond is quite deep. Last year, my father was ill, and we made collectively 12 trips to India. Unfortunately, my father passed away at the age of 90. My mom is a childlike, very curious and innocent, and her infectious life. But most interesting thing is she's very much interested in life and reading. I have read autobiography of Gandhiji and a couple of other books. My older daughter, Kamal, is reading to her Shantaram, and Sanjana is reading to her Midnight's Children. I don't know who is gaining more. We are all learning from each other, and it's infectious.
Finally, you are determined to convert the United Kingdom and the whole of the world into vegans. Do you think that this will happen? Do you think it has got to happen because of the whole issue of scarcity of food? Or do you think people will still carry on eating animals?
I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe in the fundamental goodness in the human nature. We are already behind the curve, and the way in which we look at the slavery now, our children and grandchildren and the generations behind us will look at us and will ask us, how could you let it go? I'm very hopeful one day, collectively, will solve the world's hunger problem, and we will treat the animals or all the creatures of the Mother Earth with utmost respect and love.
Mala Dalal, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. You've given us literally food for thought, and I would not be at all surprised if some of the listeners of Leica Radio 1458 have decided to give up meat and animal products as a result of what you've said. In the meantime, I know that you will continue with your passionate campaign to turn Britain and the world vegan. Thank you for joining us. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. Genuinely feel privileged and humble. Thank you.
Leica Radio.
Yeah, the meat bros. Just tell me, I'm you wanna sing, oh? Ikke ठुमके पे सौ ताड़ियां हिले जब लक तेरा हिलती है बाड़ियां एक ठुमके पे सौ ताड़ियां हिले जब लक मेरा हिलती है बाड़ियां एक ठुमके पे सौ ताड़ियां हिले जब लक तेरा हिलती है बाड़ियां 24 घंटे मुंडे रहंदे मेरे अगे पीछे जब हाय हिलते नचे ता तू बड़ी जचे हाय हिलते नचे ता तू बड़ी जचे जब हाय हिलते नचे तू बड़ी जचे
पहली बात तो ये जो तू टिकटॉक चलती है माना ये सारी तेरी हाई हील्स की गलती है रुक तो जा तू है कौन ये तो बता तू है कौन कहाँ से आई है कहाँ को जाएगी पागल लड़की मुझे मरवाएगी
Shut up.
बस कर ये जलवे न दिखा ये सब मैं वो देख चुका तुम जैसी तो बच जाती है फिर दुर्घटना घट जाती है मैं हूँ शिकारी उड़िए खाली मेरा बार नहीं जाता तुझको ना पहचाने क्यों तेरे घर अखबार नहीं आता अखबार नहीं आता
जब हाय हिलते नचे तू बड़ी जचे
आंखों से चीट करके टॉक स्वीट करके रात में अपनी तू मुझको बिठा लेगा मुझे जो तंग किया कुछ मेरे संग किया तो मेरी हाई हील से मार तू खा लेगा
नचे दिन खुले जाने जुल्फाए काड़ियां सीने विच दिल विल टग लैन वाड़ियां नचे दिन खुले जाने जुल्फाए काड़ियां सीने विच दिल विल टग लैन वाड़ियां जादू तेरी ब्यूटी वाला नॉन स्टॉप खिच्चे
कहंदा हाई हील ते नचे ता तू बड़ी जचे हाई हील ते नचे ता तू
जब हाय हिलते नचे तू बड़ी जचे जब हाय हिलते नचे ता तू बड़ी जचे हाय हिलते नचे ता तू बड़ी जचे
This is Leica Radio.
Leica Radio. Some people have an instinct
To protect those in need.
And stop those doing harm.
to be there when it matters.
And to be the change their community needs.
If you have the instinct to make a difference, join us.
Become a police officer
And get all the training and support you need.
Make your difference.
Search, join the police.
and be one of the 20,000 new officers.
Guess what? It takes 2 to mango.
Are you having those Dani fruit drinks again in mango with special chunks of mango and also in orange and peach, special popular produce of South Asia?
Yeah, it's mango-nificent.
Available at all quality foods or even the local stores. Contact Kapadia Enterprises on 07375 703808.
Aren't you glad I told you about Dani fruit drinks?
I so am.
Well, you've got a peach of my heart.
Tariq Halal, there is only one.
But there is always one branch near you.
Ilford, Forest Gate and Leighton in East London. For more info, visit tariqhalal.com.
I'm not sure if you've noticed what's happening in Brent. No longer balmy Brent of the 1980s, now described as the Manhattan of North London. In our very first programme on Talking Points, we spoke to Councillor Mohammed Butt, the outstanding leader of the London Borough of Brent. Let's talk to one of his key team now, Councillor Sharma Tatler. Before entering politics, she was a secondary school history teacher, but has always been passionate about opportunities for young people. She became a councillor in 2014 and is now the Cabinet Member for Regeneration, Property and Planning since 2016, one of the top jobs in the borough. She currently oversees some of the biggest developments in London, including a council-led and community-supported scheme where residents overwhelmingly voted in favour via an estate ballot. She joins me this morning from, where else? Wembley. Good morning, Sharma.
Morning, Keith. How are you?
I'm fine. You are dealing with the biggest developments in London. Every time we go past Wembley, there's another tower block emerging. How big are these developments? And how many more are you going to have?
So Wembley in particular is a growth area for us in Brent, and we're expecting Wembley Park and the surrounding to generate over 20,000 new homes for Brent residents and obviously people coming to Brent. But Wembley's not the only area that we are looking for investment or leading investment in. So we've got big schemes in South Kilburn and many across the Edgware Road, and we're looking to start some growth areas around Alperton and obviously Neasden and in the north of the borough, Northwick Park as well. So there's a lot going on in Brent, but it's to really look at how we solve the housing crisis.
And we see it changing before our very eyes. What other changes do you think that people can see, look forward to over the next few years?
So I suppose in Wembley we've obviously had a huge amount of investment that not only looks at homes being built, but we've also had other infrastructure such as jobs in terms of an outlet centre, a new theatre, and also we're looking to build more schools where appropriate, medical centres, and we're anticipating changes over the next few years in some of our transport links and road networks to make sure we're fit for purpose for the next 20 to 40 years.
Now, there is a feeling in some quarters that local people may well feel that they're being left out, that the quality, the size of the change has been so amazing, and the cost of a studio flat, one-bedroom flat in places like Wembley is enormous now for some local people. What are we doing for them? How are we ensuring that local people feel empowered by these incredible changes?
So there's two things really, and I think within the building and planning framework, in Brent, we've been very successful in securing genuinely affordable homes for local residents that are matched to local earnings, and that's really important for us to continue. We're the leading borough this year in London. We're also secure through planning a lot of job opportunities for people within the local area, which is really important. But we're also building our own council homes. We're well on our way to delivering over 1,000 council homes in borough by 2022. And finally, we're also using some developer contributions to look at how we can support community groups and community projects and community infrastructure across the borough. So we've allocated £12 million to those kind of projects and infrastructure across the borough from developer contributions.
So people can see that when you get this money under Section 106, it is actually going to them, that they are feeling involved and their communities are changing. Final question about the Borough of Culture. Now, we were delighted to hear that Brent had been selected. Tough competition amongst all the other London boroughs. I know COVID has put a bit of a dampener on some of the plans that you all had. Has it been a successful year for Brent as the Borough of Culture? You've still got 3 months left.
Well, yeah, I think it has been, and we've obviously done a lot of things online. So our young people have recorded a programme with Vice, a podcast, which is young people talking about their experiences in Brent. We've moved some of the programme to be delivered next summer, so that will be coming forward. And things like artwork and so on are being continued. So we've got a big, for example, where I'm a counsellor, we have a mural of George Michael coming forward. He was a student in one of my schools locally, so that's very exciting locally. But it's also, I think, the important bit about Borough of Culture is that we're looking to set up a legacy charitable trust in order to continue it beyond the year. So whilst we have a great diversity of borough with 149 languages spoken in Brent and great history of reggae and Granwick strikes and J.A. Ben Desai and all these kind of history within Brent, but we also want to look at the continuing legacy. So part of our Borough of Culture and why we won was like the legacy going forward. It's not just about the year, it's about what continues after. And we're hoping that our cultural trust, which is half made up of young people, will continue that legacy.
Councillor Sharma Tatla, thank you so much for not just what you're doing with your colleagues, Mohammed Butt and others in the London Borough of Brent, but for joining us this morning, and good luck in what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Keith, and thank you to all the listeners at Leica Radio.
तरसना मेरे ते लुट्टी फिर टाउन तू बिलो नी सारा ना निकलिया कर गली गेड़े ते कर दिया वाइब निकल सानू तेरी तू खावे क्यों तरसना मेरे ते लुट्टी फिर टाउन तू बिलो नी सारा ना निकलिया कर गली गेड़े ते तेरे ते तेरे ते तेरे ते आँख मेरी खड़ दिया तेरे ते तेरे ते तेरे ते तेरे ते आँख मेरी खड़ दिया तेरे ते उसने करा स्विंग पूरा टाउन गया हिल वो प्रॉपर सीन करे किल बॉटम करे पॉप पॉप करे पिल she looking at me सारे करो chill वो grind करती है solo what you need हाँ baby बोलो जब करे वो सब कुछ लगे slow mo up and down जाती like a yo-yo DJ का drop dance वाली beat तूने करा move बढ़ा दी तूने heat I wanna see you shake कर दे repeat थके ना जरा भी like an athlete ay 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 तेरे ते तेरे ते तेरे ते आँख मेरी खड़ दिया तेरे ते तेरे ते तेरे ते तेरे ते आँख मेरी खड़ दिया तेरे ते
Leica Radio.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458. From one remarkable woman to another, Simone Sultana is an economist who has worked on a wide range of political, economic and social issues across the globe. She lived in South Africa during the political transition from apartheid, working with organised business, labour and government during the Mandela years to forge consensus around economic and development policy issues. She has spent the last 5 years working on workers' safety in the global clothing supply chain after the Rana Plaza collapse, which killed more than 1,200 workers in Bangladesh. Today, I will be talking to her in her capacity as chair of the UK charity BRAC UK. Joining me this morning from Camden is Simone Sultana. Good morning, Simone.
Good morning, Keith.
BRAC is not a household name, yet it is, in fact, ranked as the #1 NGO for 5 years running. Tell me about how this little organisation formed in Bangladesh is now having a global impact.
Yes, Keith. Outside of development circles, BRAC has indeed remained under the radar. It was actually founded in Bangladesh way back in 1972 by two close Bengali friends who'd forged their relationship as students in London. So Fazle Hassan Abid, who grew BRAC in a visionary manner to what it is today, and my own father, Vicar Chaudhry, whose humanitarian instincts underpinned its genesis. You want to know a little bit about BRAC? Well, today it's recognized as a global leader in developing cost-effective, evidence-based poverty innovations programs in extremely poor, conflict-prone and post-disaster settings. And they include a wide variety of bottom-up programs developed over years with people on the ground in education, healthcare, microfinance, girls' empowerment, agriculture, human and legal rights, and social enterprises. And it just continues. I really do encourage you and your listenership to have a look at the website, brac.net. But as well as in Bangladesh, it's now working across 11 countries and enabling 110 million people to transform their lives and livelihoods.
Well, the world economy, as we all know, is facing very uncertain times. What is the general economic outlook for the regions BRAC works in and the developing world in general? There is always this feeling that when the economy of the world is slowing down, the ability to give money and resources to NGOs also slows down.
Absolutely. And we are facing a challenge. I think everyone in every household is facing a challenge. And COVID-19 has triggered a global health crisis that, in addition to an enormous human toll, is leading to the deepest global recession since the Second World War. I mean, according to World Bank forecasts, the global economy will shrink by 5.2% this year, and capita incomes in the vast majority of emerging markets and developing economies are expected to shrink this year. Keith, on top of this, we've got climate change, which will continue to have a huge impact, particularly in developing countries. And the effects of this are only further exacerbated by COVID-19. I mean, BRAC's own rapid assessment surveys indicate that people have no savings to fall back on and very limited food supplies and stockpiles. And again, you can have a look at a sort of a regular update on our website. But more fundamentally, the structural and systemic dynamics in the world economy as we know it are leading to greater and greater inequality, which is something of great concern. And I think we really need to step back and think about what we need now going forward, far more ideologically and theoretically. But I do want to say one thing, Keith, that it's not all bleak. I mean, if you look at the long haul, there have been phenomenal improvements in countries like Bangladesh. Since BRAC began its operations in the 1970s, the country's development indices have improved leaps and bounds. I mean, even since 1990, life expectancy at birth has increased by 14.1 years. If you look at mean years of schooling, it's increased by 3.2 years, and expected years of schooling have increased by 5.6 years, and that's just since 1990.
On a related subject, you have been working for the last 5 years in the worker safety in the clothing supply chain. The clothes we buy on the street or online are all part of this chain, and there has been intense media and government focus on this. What strides have been made so far following the tragedy of Rana Plaza?
It's a mixed story, Keith. I think that the labour situation is consistently challenging, not least at a time like this with COVID underway. But I have a little bit of a good news story, which is that in the last 5 years, I've been working in a very specific area, which is the safety area. We all take for granted that we walk into our workplaces and we will walk out alive. And that is simply not the case and hasn't been in a place like Bangladesh, in the factories where our clothing is made from. And, you know, we as consumers have some responsibility in this because we are wanting cheaper clothing and seasonal changes, and the whole industry has developed that way. But what has been remarkable has been what happened after Rana Plaza. I mean, I was involved in a specific initiative called Nerapon and Alliance, which worked with the big buyers in America like Gap and Walmart. And with collaboration with the brands and with suppliers on the ground, they really looked into fire, electrical and structural safety and developed a partnership where significant improvements were made at a very technical level. I mean, I think I've become a junior engineer over the last 5 years because of it. But quite frankly, Bangladesh has done in 5 years what UK and the USA took almost 100 years to do, in the way that mindsets have changed and how factories have become safer. And there've been, I think the proof is in the eating of the pudding. I mean, the reality is that there haven't been any accidents in the factories that we have worked with. But, I know that and have seen the implementation of the safety protocols. Whereas prior to that, I mean, you were having, death on a monthly basis.
Simone Sultana, you are doing some incredible work, and you will continue to do that in not just in BRAC, but also all the other various organisations that you're involved in. Please keep in touch with us. I'm sure we will talk to you again. In the meantime, carry on regardless. You're doing great work and continue to provide this kind of support that is vitally needed all over the world.
Thank you very much, Keith, and especially to the listeners of Leica Radio.
You're so fussy with your food.
Mom, I only love the food at Natraj restaurant.
चलो चलते हैं जहाँ गुजराती, पंजाबी, इंडो-चाइनीज और साउथ इंडियन फूड खा के हम अपनी उंगलियां चाटेंगे. 467 Alexandra Avenue, Rayners Lane. Call 0208-617-3858.
I love Natraj restaurant, even better than your food, Mummy.
क्या?
Natraj restaurant.
467 Alexandra Avenue, Rayners Lane. Call 0208-617-3858. Basement Club, new opening on 97 Ealing Road, Wembley. Try your favourite non-veg and veg food with live music. आप भी पहुंचिए और लुत्फ उठाइए. Basement Club पे DJ and live music. For party hire and bookings, call 0208-723-2333. Basement Club, new opening.
At Big Motoring World, we usually say go big or go home. But now we're saying go big from your home. Order the car you love from the thousands online and then collect in store. Contact-free digital signing, sanitized cars, and a whole lot of loving from 2 meters. Big Motoring love has never been so clean. Order online at bigmotoringworld.co.uk.
Big Motoring World.
आपने सुना? बाजू वाले अरोड़ा साहब ने और 2 प्रॉपर्टी किराए पे लगा दी और सामने वाले पटेल भाई सालों से यही काम कर रहे हैं.
भाग्यवान, मगर बाय टू लेट मॉर्गेज लेना इतना आसान और सस्ता नहीं है.
मैंने मिसेस अरोड़ा और मिसेस पटेल दोनों से पूछताछ कर ली है और वो दोनों हर बार स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया यूके से ही बाय टू लेट मॉर्गेज लेते हैं. SBI बाय टू लेट मॉर्गेज की इंटरेस्ट रेट बड़े कम्पिटिटिव हैं.
क्या बात है, फिर तैयार हो जा. आज ही हम SBI UK की नजदीकी ब्रांच में चलते हैं.
SBI UK Limited is authorised by the PRA and regulated by the FCA and the PRA.
This is
Leica Radio.
Talking Points with Keith Faz on Leica Radio 1458 AM.
Time's up for this week. Please stay tuned for Aditi, who will be hosting another wonderful edition of Bollywood Hits, which follows the news. My thanks to my guests, Dr. Mala Dalal, Simone Sultana, Councillor Sharma Tatler and Annie Singh for choosing our songs. Thanks, of course, to the Leica team, station manager Sunil, producer Rupi and my editor Adam. This has been Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio 1458. Thank you for tuning in. I know that you have a choice, so thank you for spending a bit of your Sunday morning with me. My song of the week this week brings together the Black Eyed Peas, the Puerto Rican superstar Azuma, and a 22-year-old black Filipina artist, Jessica Renuso. It's climbed to number 1 in the Latin charts. Stay safe and enjoy your Sunday. This has been Keith Vaz on Leica Radio 1458, signing off with Mamacita.
Mamacita, mamacita, qué bonita. Mamacita.
Diamante, le gusta cuando al oído yo le digo que
Mamacita, mamacita, qué bonita. Mamacita. Mamacita, mamacita, qué bonita. Mamacita.
ella no le baja nunca tumba, siempre anda lista para la rumba. Dos amigas que le secundan, salen y gastan la funda. Le gusta sudarle el alcohol, sola la pasa mejor, vestida de Christian Dior. Siempre llega cuando sale el sol, dame de lo que yo sé, una botella de rosé, que la chori tiene sed, ese booty mami la rompe. Ella tiene algo que hace que a mí me guste, ella tiene algo que hace que a mí me guste. I'ma put you in the mix, put you in the mix, put you in the, put you in the, put you in the mix. Alright, okay, I'ma love you all kind of ways. Boy, you got me caliente when you call me mamacita. Alright, boy, you got me saying ooh la la. Ay, Dios mío, oh my God, call me mamacita.
Mamacita, mamacita, qué bonita. Mamacita.
beso. Dame tu corazón, dame cuerpo. Mommy, when you give me body, I won't let go. You the best, baby. Yep, you special. Damn, baby, I want what you got. First time I seen you, I'm like, who that? Dame dulce, dame azúcar. I do what you say, vamos a bailar. Cause I like the way you move like this. I like the way you wind up your hips. I like the way you grind and twist it. Hot damn, baby, you got me lit. When you put me in the mix, put me in the mix, put me in the mix.
I'ma put you in the mix, put you in the mix, put you in the mix.
Alright, okay.
I'ma love you all kind of ways. Boy, you got me caliente when you call me mamacita.
Alright,
Boy, you got me saying ooh la la. Ay, Dios mío, oh my God. Call me mamacita.
Mamacita, mamacita, qué bonita. Mamacita.
Put me in the mix, put me in your vida. Put me on top, ponme arriba. Put me in between ya. Mommy got the fire and I got the gasolina. Mueve mami, move it on me. Sacudolo, make me a zombie. Girl, make me sweat like wasabi. I know I got you wet like tsunami. I wanna make you my princessa. Where you wanna go, what interests ya? Give me that mundo to impress ya. If you're hot, baby, let me undress ya. Alright, okay.
I'ma love you all kind of ways. Boy, you got me caliente when you call me mamacita.
Alright,
Boy, you got me saying ooh la la. Ay, Dios mío, oh my God.
On 1458 in London.
On your mobile.